Hello, this is Miss Tuttle, and I'm interviewing my dad, who is a veteran for Veterans Day, and I have some questions I'm going to ask him. So, what is your name?
Rick Weiser,
And what branch of military were you in?
the Navy.
And how old were you?
I was 19 when I entered the Navy.
How many years were you in the Navy?
For 4.
Was joining the Navy your choice?
I joined the Navy because at the time they were drafting people and the draftees were just learning how to combat, and I wanted something more than that, so I joined the Navy so I could get some schooling education.
Okay. What was boot camp like?
Boot camp was a merry-go-round because when I had asthma when I was a kid, they thought I still had some asthma. And so they made me wait for a week while they checked me out to make sure that I was going to be eligible. So I didn't end up going in with my friends that I had joined with. I ended up waiting a week, and then I ended up becoming a squad leader because I was already knew all the stuff that I was supposed to know for the first week, so they made me in charge. But the drawback of being a squad leader was when somebody in the squad got in trouble, you had to do double duty, which meant when you did exercises with the rifles, you had to do it with 2 rifles instead of 1. So I had an interesting time in boot camp just trying to stay out of trouble.
Okay. What war did you serve in?
Vietnam.
And what was your job during that war?
Well, the first year I was a bomb elevator operator on the Ticonderoga aircraft carrier, which meant that I sent bombs up from the hangar deck to the flight deck so they could load them on the aircraft to take them into Vietnam and drop them on the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
Did you get any awards while you were there?
The awards were pretty much just badges for spending the time in the war zone.
Okay. Where did you eat and sleep while you were stationed there?
When I was on the ship, we ate in a mess hall, which was below decks, which was just like a big chow hall. And when I was on base inland, it was the same way. They had big chow halls there that everybody stood in line and ate in.
How long were you out on the water?
Sometimes between 30 and 50 days, depending on where you were at.
Did you do anything for fun?
We were able to have liberty when we got into a port somewhere, and I was in several ports in Southeast Asia, the Philippines and Japan and Singapore and Hong Kong.
Was there anything interesting in Hong Kong or Singapore that you remember?
Well, I got in trouble before we got to Singapore because I was sleeping in an unauthorized space because the sleeping area was so hot that you would take a shower, powder yourself down with baby powder, and then lay down on the bunk with no sheets, just a mattress cover, and lay spread eagle so that you didn't sweat against yourself because it was so hot. So a couple of us guys got up and were sleeping in the gun turret, which was on the outer part of the boat, or the ship, so that we got fresh air, and we got written up for it. So the whole time I was in Singapore, I had to hang over the side and paint the side of the ship. But I did get to go in at night and see what it was like at night. It was fun. And in Hong Kong, it was very interesting because of all the little boats full of people that were living actually on the water there in the bay. Some of them had never been on land before. And so it was very interesting being in port period there. But Japan was the best place that we stopped. I went with a friend and we went to a place called Unzen National Park, and it was a really nice vacation and got to spend about 3 days up there. So,
Do you have an interesting, funny memory being on the ship?
well, when we went to the national park there in Japan, we didn't know how to speak Japanese, but we had a dictionary with us, and so we went to a restaurant after we got off the bus, and the people at the restaurant told us about where the hotel was, and one of them called the hotel while we were there and had them come and pick us up. So they came and picked us up, and when we got there, they took us to our room, and the person that took us to our room took us in and showed us around and opened this closet and showed us these what they call gis. They look like bathrobes that all the Japanese people wear after a certain period in the evening, and then left. So we sat down to have some sake, and pretty soon she comes back to the room and she's all upset, and she comes in and she's pointing to the gis that are hanging in the closet. And as it turns out, she wanted us to put them on because the custom was that you put those gis on and then you go down to the basement where the hot springs public bath was, and you sat down on a bucket in front of a faucet and washed yourself down and then soaked in the hot springs for however long, and that's what you were supposed to put the gis on for. So anyway, we got a tour of the park and had a very nice gentleman take us around and show us around the place, and ended up even in a different hotel that he worked at because he was the only one in town that spoke English that could come and talk to us. So that's how it worked out.
Did you make any lasting friendships?
I did, and in fact, my best friend from the service just passed here a couple of years ago. But we had a good time during the time period that we were able to spend together.
Do you have a scary or sad memory while you were stationed?
Well, the whole time I was over there, both times, the only time I ever was close to somebody that lost their life was a seaman apprentice that was working on the deck, and we were having what they call an unrep, which means another ship pulls up alongside you and they run cables back and forth and bring supplies onto the ship, both food and ammunition, etc. And that particular boat that day lost its steering and snapped a cable, and the cable ended up killing one of the guys on the boat, and that was the saddest thing that we ran into.
Is there anything you would like us to know about being a veteran?
Well, I tell you what, it's an adventure. It teaches you discipline and responsibility. It can be a whole lot of fun, and it can be a whole lot of work. It just depends on what branch you're in and what is going on at the time, and whether they end up sending you somewhere where there's combat.
Okay. Thank you for letting me interview you.
You're welcome.
All right.